Welcome everyone. My name's Amber Wright, and today I'm going to share about private member associations, and more specifically education associations, and how we can homeschool and unschool in the private domain. Before I get into the details and the meat of this presentation, I want to share about the hierarchy of laws in America. There we go. And gotta get the screen share on the right spot. Here we go. So right here we have the public and private domains, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Is how do you have a PMA and offer to the private domain only when at the same time you're advertising in the public domain? That's another topic too. So we need to understand these hierarchy of laws. So the statutory law is state law. They're the statutes and codes that often people will bring up. Oh, I'm homeschooling, but the state tells me that I have these requirements I need to make, and I need to report my children's learning level to them twice a year. So those are statutes and codes. And then above that, all these statutes have to comply with our Constitution and our constitutional rights. And under that, what we have is scriptural authority as well. We have scriptural authority, God's law and natural law is above the Constitution, and most of us do not know this. But when we have our founding documents written with God's law, it is stronger. And I've often seen, and this happens, where agencies will send, you're operating, you need to get a business license. You're going against these statutes, and it's a very intimidating. And then the PMA will send a response with scripture in their letter and talking about our rights, our constitutional rights, and then it just goes silent, and the state agencies leave them alone. So that's one example of how this structure actually does work. So faith-based organizations claim additional protections based on scriptural authority. Okay, let's go back to the other presentation. Here we go. All right, so back to homeschooling, unschooling. How can we do this? So we have fundamental rights. They are declared. We're not given these rights by the Constitution. That's a declaration of what our rights are. Laws are supposed to achieve their purpose without restricting our fundamental rights. The rights of freedom of speech and association, voting, freedom from arbitrary physical restraint, decisions about marriage, family relationships, child rearing, and education. So with our state officers or state agencies, they have the duty to support constitutional rights. State officers have committed by oath to support the Constitution. The 14th Amendment is the supreme law of the land, of the Constitution, binding effect on the states. Anything in the Constitution or laws of the state laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding, means that they need to write laws and codes that support the Constitution. However, I feel like these lines get blurry partly because of us obeying the statute so much and not knowing that we have more rights than what they are telling us. So right here, this is the real meat right here. The supremacy clause dictates that federal law is the supreme law of the land, that judges in every state must follow the Constitution, laws, and treaties of the federal government in manners which are directly or indirectly within the government's control. which we don't necessarily want to say, oh, we want the federal government to control everything, but it is saying that the federal government has to follow the Constitution and that they're bound together. The right to an education is the right of the parent, also has the right of the parent to direct that education. So it's up to the parents to decide how to educate their child. Do they want to go to public school? Do they want to go to private school? Do they want to go to a private education association or children's ministry? So this right here is from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, UDHA, and this is referenced in our founding documents for private associations. Everyone has the right to education. Education shall be free in elementary and fundamental stages. Elementary education shall be compulsory. Technical and professional education shall be made available, and higher education shall be equally accessible on the basis of merit. Education shall be directed to the full development of the human personality and to the strengthening of respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. It shall promote understanding, tolerance, and friendship among all nations, racial or religious groups, and shall further the activities of the United Nations, because this is a universal declaration, for the maintenance of peace. Parents have a prior right to choose the kind of education that shall be given to their children. So here are more case laws about the right of the parent to guide and direct education. There's one, Pierce versus Society of Sisters, which is a landmark decision of the United States Supreme Court striking down an Oregon statute that required all children attend public school. And then another one, Pierce versus Society of Sisters. The ruling became a Magna Carta of sorts for private schools, including faith-based ones safeguarding their right to operate. And then another one where the court declared a Nebraska law unconstitutional. It violated liberty protected by due process clause of the 14th Amendment. And here's another one that I don't have the description for yet. So numerous cases, there has been, the Supreme Court has made note or made apparent that there exists a public domain and a private domain in the United States. The First and 14th Amendment rights of free speech and free association are fundamental and highly prized and need breathing space to survive. Freedoms such as these are protected not only against heavy-handed frontal attack, but also from being stifled by more subtle government interference. Also, this NAACP is a PMA, by the way. Okay, the private domain is referred to as a sanctuary from unjustified interference by the state. It's a constitutional shelter, and again, as a shield. In addition, the Supreme Court, in this case, refers to the domain set apart for free assembly. The First Amendment right to association creates a preserve, and in summary, the private domain of an association is a sanctuary, constitutional shelter, shield, and domain set apart and a preserve according to these Supreme Court decisions. So take a little breather. Oh, pretty picture. So it's important for us to realize that we have these rights to associate. And when we have our homeschool under an association, we are removing the jurisdiction of the state in determining the education for our children. We're taking that back, and we are deciding to educate them in private domain. And that's where we can say to the state, there's a form for this when pulling children out of public school that is sent to the school system that says, we hereby remove you the duty to educate our children with the children's names. And it's basically firing the state. is firing. You don't have the role, say, over my children's education anymore. And then furthermore, in homeschool or in private education associations, we offer a homeschool diploma, and or the association itself will create their own graduation diploma for high schoolers. Okay, back into it. The regulations that you have attached, so before, pertain to businesses that conduct business with the public. As a private membership association, we provide no product or service to the public, and that's why PMAs will put a sign on the door that says service is not for the public, this is for private members only. And as a private member association, our right to assemble with one another to follow our faith is clearly within the private domain. And in conclusion, this is so important for us as people, as individuals, to exercise our fundamental rights. If we continually allow the state to diminish or regulate our fundamental rights, they will diminish until our rights are gone. It's just that. And that's why I think that there's this big movement for being in PMAs, and for there's so many constitutional groups that I've seen that, because of COVID, right? Because of the lockdown, we're like, wait a second. How did they even get away with mandating all that stuff? A mandate's not a law. Then people turned against each other. So I'll read this last little bit. By combining two of the fundamental rights, the right to associate and the right to education directed by the parent, parents have the right to take their children outside the jurisdiction of state regulation. To open a private association is a fundamental right. However, that association needs to be founded in a manner that does not give jurisdiction to the state. So our founding documents are non-statutory. That means they're not written in a way that requires us to follow state law, state codes. And another conclusion is about how Lee, Suzanne, and I have a course, How to Start a Learning Center. And we take many aspects of, so we go through a lot of how to bring your family together, and how to bring your community together, and how to create a program that's going to grow beyond you, that you could even walk out of one day and it'll continue, along with how to create the governance structures, how to have create the curriculum, and we have a chapter on location as well. It's very in-depth, and I'd love to share more with you. Check us out at enlighten.org. And enlighten.net is where the course is landed. And then learning.enlighten.net has a lot more information on it. And of course, all those pages are linked to each other. And thank you for joining us today. My name is Amber Wright. I'm a PMA advisor with David Edwards and PMA Power. And schedule a consultation. I'd love to talk to you about your private member association.